Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Now this morning I'm looking at a book which we've reviewed before. It's an important book. I'm not going to spend a long time on this review because we've looked at this book before and there are quite a lot of previous earlier reviews on it. It's an important book. It's the APIL Guide to Fatal Accidents. Now in a third edition. It's been written by Gordon Excel and it's available as an ebook from Jordan Publishing. Now we've given the title of our review, and it's only a very short review, this one. APIL comes up trumps again, dealing with the most difficult area of PI. That's fatal accidents, PI being personal injury. And I'm going to just say a very little bit about the book in a minute, but what I want to do is just show you the book first of all. This is the new edition. And it's dealing with a very difficult, sensitive area. There's the spine, there's the back of the book there. Dealing with a very difficult area of law. These areas are difficult in terms of practice. I've found them difficult to deal with. You're dealing with very sensitive issues. There's the index at the back. It's not a big book, runs to 300 pages, just over. It's got some useful information at the back. There are if I can just show various appendices. This is the Criminal Injuries Compensation Scheme from 2012, Appendix 6. Ogden tables are listed. CPR is mentioned, Limitation Acts are mentioned, the rules there, and the Limitation Act and the Fatal Accidents Act, of course, must feature. That's Appendix 4, law reform legislation as well. There are some useful precedents which are included. And then you've got, as we go forward, there are the appendices on precedents. There's the checklist, which is very helpful, and it's easier than looking in the practice books for quite a lot of this stuff, I have to say. Then there's a useful example client questionnaire dealing with all the sort of things that you've got to ask for when you're actually talking. Then there is quite a useful little sub-list of headings for the appendices themselves. If we go to the front of the book, there's the front there. There's been a contribution from Paul Bailin, who's a consultant at Freeths. He's actually contributed. And there's a very important acknowledgement and memory note there, which I wanted to draw to your attention. Now we've got forward to the first edition from the president of APIL, that's Patrick Allen. This, of course, is the third edition. Then there's a preface. And the preface is worth reading because Gordon Excel says, I wrote the first edition, 2002, second in 2009, so it's quite a big gap. There have been important developments since both editions, and some of them are welcome, and he talks about a number of areas which are quite important matters. There are 2 new chapters he's included. There are also matters concerning damages and anticipation of death, and obviously there are a number of very serious case decisions. Cowner and the Ministry of Justice is mentioned there. Then there's a point concerning the chapter by Paul Bailin on coroner's inquests, and again there's a useful piece of information. Then there's some detail about the Association of Personal Injury Lawyers themselves, APIL. And we couldn't really do without the support we get from APIL for these books, because anybody who's involved in this sort of work needs these guides, even if you want to brush up on the law. There's the contents list. You see the contents are quite detailed as well. And you've then got split into various parts. You've then got a whole range of information. I think this book would be quite useful for people doing the bar exams, at least to have an idea of what's in this, because I certainly had for my bar exams work to do in this area, and of course in pupillage I did as well. That was some while ago, and obviously there were a lot of changes in those days from what's happening. You can see the chapters, they run through quite substantially. The last chapter is chapter 28 on human rights. And obviously that may have to be rewritten in the course of time, but we will wait and see. Then there are the various appendices there. Then you have the table of cases, a few new cases which have come in. Then you've got the statutes themselves, then the statutory instruments there, and then there are some initial considerations in part 1. which sets out how the book runs through. The efficient conduct of a fatal accident case, early and prompt preparation. I think actually that headline sums up a lot about this, and that is early and prompt. I think one of the things that has in the past been a little bit of subject of difficulty with, certainly with lawyers, is the fact that this is an area of law that has to be handled very carefully. You're dealing with a fatal accident, you're dealing with a lot of emotion, and you've got to look very professional at any given time. I think APIL are a credit in that they are producing these guides for us in person injury litigation, which I find of great help, even with the relatively small number of cases I have in this area, as I'm not a specialist. But it does help me as a person who does advise, but doesn't put himself out to do this and only this, or only particular part of PI work, because my practice is much wider. But this sort of book is of great help to us. And as I've indicated, I think it's useful for people in the early years of practice as well. I think they will find it quite helpful. Now, I'm going to be fairly brief with the review, because what I'm saying here is actually in the book itself as the main blurb, if you like. But it's really why I think the book is good, and that is that practitioners know that the matter of any type of fatal accident itself presents a set of hard law problems which are distinct from those covered in non-fatal personal injury litigation. And the most important questions are: who does the law categorise as dependent, and how does the advocate calculate the claim for dependency? And these are the sort of questions that we've got to know the answers to. We've got to know how to deal with it. And so by welcoming the APIL guide to fatal accidents, now in its third edition, it provides, I think, first-class practical advice on how to manage a claim involving a fatal accident and how to secure the maximum awards for all those involved in it: the family, the friends, and the estate of the deceased person. And as I said, there's a lot of sensitivity that comes into it. Now, Gordon Excel, who's obviously a substantially highly experienced expert in this, has produced the third edition, which has been extensively revised and updated, and he explains what he's done in the actual foreword. Or the preface rather. What we've got is a new chapter on pre-action conduct. There's a new chapter on damages in anticipation of death. The Ogden tables are there, and there's a new section on fatal accidents and same-sex relationships. That, of course, in itself is a change from where we were in the past. There's also the revised chapter on coroner's inquests, which Paul Balin's been involved in following the implementation of the Coroner's Investigations Regulations 2013 and the Coroner's Inquest Rules 2013 as well. I found that there is useful practical material available as well, such as the client questionnaire, which I think you'll find very useful to know about. Draft pleadings, of course, and the schedules of damages which assist. And let me finally say that you've got the relevant statutory materials referred to at the back of the book, and there is the 7th edition of the Ogden tables, which are also there in the appendices, 3 of reference. To say any more than that is to just repeat what's already been said. This is a first-class book. It's what you need if you do a fatal accident case. And basically it's the simple, short answer, without going through all of the loose-leaf stuff and all the other excellent stuff which Jordan's, APIL, all the other people produce. This gives you it straightforward information very quickly. We're going to something, we're dealing with very difficult issues here. For instance, chapter 15, funeral expenses. Not a subject people want to talk about. You've got the footnoting at the bottom, but you've got claims where there's no grant or probate. You've got practical points, which are a very important criteria. You've got bereavement damages. Again, you've got all sorts of things. These are not easy areas to talk about, but you've again got the practical points in relation to loss and so forth. As I've said, I think this is a very important book. Right at the end, you've of course got the reference material, Kemp and Kemp, and a whole range of other. McGregor on damages, of course, as well. These are the standard text. Can I just say the Law Commission's mentioned again? I like to mention a Law Commission because they do a lot of hard work, and not a lot of what they do actually appears at the end of the day, unfortunately. I'd like to see more of that. Let's just open it up again. I mentioned the preface. It is actually the preface to this third edition, and then just to give you an idea again, the detail on the contents I think is very important, because you should be able to find things pretty quickly depending on what you're looking for. For instance, basic principles of dependency calculation. There is help and assistance on calculations, which of course, if you are, for instance, pupil or junior barrister, you might be advising, might be having to do all the hard work for a silk. It's quite important to remember that you've got quite useful information there, and of course in all the other APIL guides. So thank you to Gordon, thank you to Jordan Publishing and APIL for this guide. We can't really do without this sort of information to help us as legal advisors. I'm sure in this day and age where people are more informed, better informed than they have been in the past, this sort of book is very helpful. And of course, when people are coming to us, they're in a difficult position. So do remember what I said right at the beginning about this, and that is that the most important thing when you're looking at any of this work is what I said right at the beginning. Early and prompt preparation. That does help when you're dealing with people who've been bereaved. Thank you very much to all concerned anyway for another excellent book. Very grateful to have it and been delighted to review it. Bye-bye.